So what is the crazy thing we're testing today? Well, it is a folding sickle with a crossbar lock. And we're gonna test it and see if that crossbar lock will hold up. You guys might remember the folding axe with the crossbar lock, and this one did hold up pretty good. However, this one also has an extra pin in the back that's a glass breaker that you can put in so that the only way it will fail is if it breaks that pin. Now, I tested this without the pin and it did pretty good. It never failed on me. However, this one, you know, the way this thing's angled, we're gonna see. We'll see if this thing will hold up, but it does not have that secondary pin, which does make me worry a little bit. But let's go and see how this thing does. It's like, it hooks. Oh, it failed.
Did it?
Yep, it failed once already. Let me try. I'm gonna try to hook it right with the point of it. So, see, that's why I think this thing should be facing upward, so that when I spike it, all the pressure goes towards the stop pin and not towards the lock. With this, it goes towards the lock rather than towards the stop pin. So if I spike it like that, it's not gonna fail. That's why this blade should be facing upward a little bit so that you don't have to worry about it. But as soon as you hit it like this, it's gonna fail. So could you theoretically use it? Yeah, you could, and you could totally use it to trim bushes and things. Let's try doing this one. Yeah, I mean, it works, but it hooks downward too much. So, I mean, if you were gonna use it for like a self-defense thing, you know, obviously you'd probably try to get it like that. So, I mean, it would work. The sickle needs a pin, and then it'd be just fine. This one's definitely holding up a little bit more. So the axe actually comes with a pin. It's this way. So you don't have to worry about it failing. Makes sense because, you know, it's got an actual lock on it that stops it from failing if it did possibly fail. It's not the most functional axe. Must be better just. So I don't have any up and down or anything like that. It is very smooth. It snaps out there. You know, the other one came with the lock. This one, I don't see a lock. And the problem is how it faces downward like that. I wish it faced upward where the edge was like this. That way all the pressure would go towards the stop pin rather than towards the lock. I think that's a fallacy. I think that's kind of a problem with this. Now, as far as cutting goes, same thing. The hook is inward. So when you go to chop something, it's like you're hooking in rather than it actually catching it and cutting it. So yeah, I'm not sure about this one. This one, I mean, it's cool. I mean, you know, it definitely would do some damage if you're going to use it for, you know, a self-defense type thing. Not saying that that's what it's good for, what it's used for, but that's the one thing I could see it actually working in. It's got a spike down here. I don't even know what this thing's for, but it's got this guy back here too for hitting. So you could crack something, you could cut something, you could spike something. What? See how easily I failed? There is a chance you're gonna get a crossbar lock that slips. So, and that's probably what's happening with this one. You've seen the axe wasn't doing that. Even before I put the pin in there, it wasn't doing it. So, you know, just like with knives, I have seen some crossbar lock knives actually do that too. 90% of them don't, because the pressure is going straight back on that pin. So here in 1 second, we will talk about the hatchet, but first I want to explain exactly what happened with the sickle. We didn't get the best video out there because it was super hot. The humidity was crazy. There was mosquitoes everywhere. The microphones were rubbing. There was a lot of breathing and it just was a mess. So I'm going to explain exactly what happened and exactly what the issue was, and then we're going to talk about the folding hatchet as well. So as far as the sickle goes, the reason why the lock is failing is because with crossbar locks, it's supposed to be a flat surface hitting a bar. So in order to fail, it has to break the bar, right? But some crossbar locks have poor lock face geometry and they'll be angled. So when they're applying pressure, it can slip out, or maybe they'll be rounded a little bit. So they'll be slightly rounded and they'll slip out too. So, you know, you want it to be a flat surface hitting a bar, so there's no way it can slip. It's just pressure on pressure. It has to break the pin in order to fail. But this one is slipping. I don't know if all of them will slip or if it's just this one. This is the only one I have. The next thing is the way the blade is angled. It's angled downward. I wish it was angled upward like this, where the blade literally goes like this and then back down. That way, when you spike it into something, all the pressure goes to the stop pin. Here's the stop pin right here. You can see it hitting the surface. So you want the pressure to hit the stop pin, not the lock. And if the blade was up higher, that's where it would go. But since it's angled downward, when you hit it, it's almost like getting hit on the nose, where when the pressure, when you hit it on the nose, goes towards the lock, not towards the stop pin. Hopefully that makes sense. So this is how I'd like it, but this is how it actually is. See how the blade is downward? I wish it was upward like that. That way, when you cut into things, the pressure go right to the blade instead of hooking into the corner. And when you hit things, it would put the pressure towards the blade, which would hit the stop pin instead of the lock that's back here. When you hit it with this way, it hits downward right here, putting pressure on the lock. Now you can kind of claw it into things and make all the pressure go right into the tip, which does go to the stop pin. And in that case, it doesn't fail. But when you're just spiking it into something, it will. Now, another thing is because the blade is angled downward and not upward, when you go to cut things, it kind of hooks them and pulls them in more than just slicing through them. So I wish it was angled upward. That way it would slice through it rather than trying to hook it and pull it towards you. Now, if it's supposed to hook and pull things towards you, then it's working just fine. But I feel like it's supposed to slice things. Now, it is very smooth. I can reverse flick it. The crossbar lock, you know, like I said, it is super smooth. You can whip it out. It does have little punch tools back here that seem like they would work pretty good. The steel is D2 steel, you know, so and I'm not mad at that for this. It did come with an incredibly sharp edge. It is nice and coated. You're not gonna have to worry about corrosion because of the coating. It is an aluminum handle, G10 scales with a carbon fiber overlay on two sides, and then a bunch of steel hardware. Another issue is this does not have a secondary pin. Like the folding hatchet does have a secondary pin, which makes it to where I can put a safety lock on there. So if the lock did fail, it wouldn't be able to fail because the pin would be in there. However, while using this, it did not fail at all. It held up just fine. And that's without the pin. Once I put the pin in, obviously it worked just fine. But without the pin, it was cutting just fine. No sign of failure. However, it's not the best folding hatchet, especially for wood. You have these sides right here. So when you get into wood, it hits that, right? And it's very difficult. So it's not the best log splitter or anything like that. Will it work in a pinch? Absolutely. Could you keep it in a truck or something for just in case? Yes, you could. You know, it is really cool, but as far as function goes, You know, they're not the most functional tools. Are they supposed to be? Maybe not. Maybe they're just supposed to be cool. And on the cool scale, they're like a 8 out of 10 badass, you know, maybe even 9 out of 10. 8.59, that's what I'm giving it. So they're definitely badass and they're definitely really cool. But as far as the folding sickle goes, you know, it needs that secondary pin. And as far as this one goes, you know, it worked just fine. It just, you know, it's not the best log splitter, but is it for that? I don't know. It still cuts. So anyways, there you guys go. Work hard, stay tough. You know society's relying on you. Until next time, peace.